I hate the feeling of being trapped in a paradox. For instance, the more you tell yourself to fall asleep, the harder it gets. The more you tell someone who's agitated to calm down, the more agitated they get. The more I tell you to not think of a blue dog, the more you think of a blue dog. These paradoxes can become traps when you don't know how to get out of them. It can feel extremely uncomfortable when you're stuck in one of them. It can be terrible to not be able to sleep at night, but what if one of these paradoxes prevent you from being who you are? What if they prevent you from being the artist you want to be? Kurt Cobain was a prominent victim of this paradox, and this trap has claimed yet another victim, Banksy. I'm going to read you a lengthy quote from Mark Fisher's Capitalist Realism on Kurt Cobain, but it's worth it, I promise. Capitalism seamlessly occupies the horizons of the thinkable. Frederick Jameson used to report in horror about the ways that capitalism has seeped into the very unconscious. Now, the fact that capitalism has colonized the dreaming life of the population is so taken for granted that it is no longer worthy of comment. Witness, for instance, the establishment of settled alternative or independent cultural zones, which endlessly repeat older gestures of rebellion and contestation as if for the first time. Alternative and independent don't designate something outside the mainstream culture. Rather, they are styles, in fact, the dominant styles within the mainstream. No one embodied and struggled with this deadlock more than Kurt Cobain and Nirvana. In his dreadful lassitude and objectless rage, Cobain seemed to give wearied voice to the despondency of the generation that had come after history, whose every move was anticipated, tracked, bought, and sold before it had even happened. Cobain knew that he was just another piece of spectacle, that nothing runs better on MTV than a protest against MTV, knew that his every move was a cliché scripted in advance, knew that even realizing it is a cliché. Here, even success meant failure, since to succeed would only mean that you were the new meat on which the system could feed. Cobain's angst was commodified. It became a product, so the more he expressed his angst, even if it was targeted at his own commodification, the more value he gave to that commodity. If he was pissed at MTV, that anger was going to be milked by MTV itself. There's no way he could escape it. Even Cobain's very suicide added value to his commodification. Now, let's talk about Banksy. His rage, or at least his indignation, is not objectless like Cobain's. Banksy has targeted war, authoritarianism, capitalism, the bourgeoisie, greed, and, more apropos for this video, the art market. This last sentiment is best expressed in a quote by art critic Robert Hughes, shared by Banksy. But the price of a work of art is now part of its function. Its new job is to sit on the wall and get more expensive. Instead of being the common property of humankind the way a book is, art becomes the particular property of somebody who can afford it. The art market turns a work of art into a commodity, a rare commodity which can make it a very good investment in the right circumstances. To some, that's a good thing. To others, it's a tragedy. Art, in many ways, is now appreciated not for its power, its beauty, or its challenging nature, but for its value and for its ability to generate more wealth for its owner. Think of Banksy's Central Park kiosk, where he hired a man to present spray art priced at $60. The artworks didn't get much attention. People weren't drawn to them, at least not enough to purchase them. However, had anybody known these were Banksy works, the kiosk would have been empty in a matter of seconds. However, this old man sold Banksy's artworks to people who liked them, either for themselves or to offer as gifts. If Banksy had sold them, he wouldn't have sold artworks but investments, high-value commodities. Again, to some people, that's great. An artwork can be both great as an artwork and as an investment. But to other people, Banksy included, this can hinder our ability to appreciate art. I would argue that because we are brought up in a commodified world, we cannot dissociate the value of a work of art and its price tag. So when the bourgeoisie estimates the price of a work at $2 million, it's hard to not have that impair our judgment. However, that $2 million price tag is not about the work of art in itself. It's about how much this work can be worth in the future and how much you, as a buyer, can gain from it. And this is extremely harmful for artists, either the ones who are beginning or the ones who don't plan on having an international career. The art market promotes the idea of investing in art, of spending with the idea of reselling for a higher price. If you buy a painting from a local artist solely because you really like it, you might not be able to resell it for its original value. Honestly, you might not be able to resell it at all, and to the art market, that's a bad investment. It comes to no surprise that the art market has little to nothing to do with art and more with wealth, speculation, and investment. I think a true collector, someone who genuinely appreciates art, can buy an artwork from someone who's completely unknown and it wouldn't matter to them because they bought the art not for the name, not for the return on investment, but for the work in itself. If you buy a work of art to later profit from it, no matter what they tell you, you're not buying a work of art. You're placing money on a nice looking investment. So I started this video by talking about how both Cobain and Banksy were stuck in the same trap. But what is this trap exactly? Banksy's greatest anti-art market stunt was, without a doubt, his shredding of the girl with balloon. In a nutshell, if you haven't heard about it, this work of art destroyed itself after being sold at auction. Banksy protested against the art market by destroying his work of art after it was sold. If you ask me, it's an incredible idea, but just like with Kurt Cobain, it would just add value to the commodity. When Cobain protested against MTV, he empowered MTV. When Banksy protests against the art market, he empowers the art market. This is the trap. No matter how much you protest the thing you hate, your protest won't only be unsuccessful, but detrimental to your goal. As Fisher wrote, here even success meant failure, since to succeed would only mean that you were the new meat on which the system could feed. Banksy is immensely successful, and if Banksy is the new meat on which the system can feed, Banksy is a feast. And this is not only true for art. Social movements and even anti-capitalist ideas can be incorporated by capitalism and resold to us. The art market knows that Banksy is going to criticize it. The billionaires buying Banksy art know that Banksy will criticize them, and they love it. The art market and billionaires don't see these attacks as dangerous. Why not? Banksy's stunt was one of the largest stunts in art history. We have one of the most successful artists in the world completely and publicly rejecting the main institution of the art world, the art market. It's a huge deal with little to no impact. The reason why Banksy's criticism is not only ineffective but beneficial to the art market is because it's all a spectacle. Events, experiences, and art are commodified and sold to us. They become a spectacle, a show comparable to a Netflix movie. Our relation to these events can often feel detached, mostly because they are sold to us almost as fiction. The mediation between us and the world through images creates this alienating disconnection. Kurt Cobain killed himself. This, relayed through mass media, is sold to us. It's used to grab our attention. It becomes a spectacle. This degradation of the real in favor of the spectacle is what makes everything feel like a show, like it's all fake. When seeing Banksy's girl with balloon being shredded as it's being bought for several hundreds of thousands of dollars, we see it like we would see a harmless performance in a circus. It's being sold to us as such. The critique becomes a spectacle, and the spectacle, not the critique, becomes the content. No matter what Banksy does, it will be commodified. Banksy has become a spectacle the same way Cobain did. No matter what they do, whatever they say, that will contribute to their value as commodities. Cobain knew that he was just another piece of spectacle, that nothing runs better on MTV than a protest against MTV. Banksy is just another piece of spectacle. Nothing runs better in the art world than a protest against the art world. Everything Banksy does will become an element of the spectacle and, therefore, a commodity to be advertised and sold. The painting being shredded is part of the spectacle. Banksy's anonymous identity is part of the spectacle. Graffiti is part of the spectacle. When Banksy and only Banksy does illegal graffiti, it's acceptable, it's funny, it's part of the show. Cobain and Banksy were turned into spectacles to a point where their protests or their rage became meaningless. Their acts were just spectacles, entertainment bits that are packaged and sold to us just like any other commodity is. This commodification of these performances, these experiences, and these artists make me worry. Kurt Cobain was so well integrated to MTV culture that even when he criticized MTV, he participated in that culture. Banksy is so well integrated in the art world that even when they criticize the art world, they participate in its culture. How can an artist possibly criticize any institution in which they have been so well integrated with? Doesn't that rob the artist from their power? What would Banksy have to do to really harm the art world and its market? Well, they couldn't make any artwork because that would contribute to the art world culture of criticizing the art world. What if they stopped making art? Well, that could also contribute to the mystery and myth of Banksy, the spectacle. Banksy is trapped. As long as they're an artist in the public eye, they'll participate, contribute, and empower the very thing they hate without any chance of meaningfully criticizing these institutions. Capitalism and the art world are so powerful that they can turn any of their criticism into a spectacle and empower themselves through that criticism. It makes these systems feel untouchable and unchangeable. If I can recommend anything, it's to read Mark Fisher's Capitalist Realism, Guy Debord's Société du Spectacle, and try to identify elements of the spectacle in your own life. And I'll leave you with the last line of Mark Fisher's Capitalist Realism: from a situation in which nothing can happen, suddenly anything is possible again. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. And as always, I'd like to thank Roman Brandel, Mike Wex, and every other patron for supporting the channel. If you also want to support the channel and appear in the credits at the end of each video, you can donate $1 or more at patreon.com/thecanvas. Thank you.